So today we're going to learn how to take the fillets off of both a flat and a round fish. We'll start with this gilt head bream. This is a round fish, so you're going to want to select a filleting knife which has a long flexible blade. So begin by making a shallow cut down its belly, going in between the pelvic fins. There is a bit of cartilage in between these fins, so you may have to just force your knife through. Now open up the belly and remove all of the guts. There is no real nice easy way to do this, just put two fingers in and scoop out anything that does come out. And it's worth noting here, I haven't removed the scales because I will be removing the skin anyway. So once you've pulled out all the guts, just go and give it a quick rinse inside. So to prep this, we're going to make two main cuts, one around the head here and then one along the back here. So for your first cut, starting from the top of the head, you're going to run your knife down and around following the shape of the head, and then down behind the pectoral fin, and then coming back in when you get to the belly. And just make sure you've gone all the way through. And the next cut you want to make just above its dorsal fin, so starting from the head, just cut a shallow cut all the way down to the tail of the fish. Now we're going to follow that same motion again, making long sweeping cuts whilst putting light downward pressure on the blade to follow those bones as closely as possible. And you can just repeat these cuts until you get to the underside of the fish. And now we've got the tail end released, you can just work your way up towards the head. Just bear in mind as you get to the head there'll be some rib bones that you will need to carefully work your way around. Just be careful not to waste any fish here. And this whole process is pretty much the same for all round fish. As always, there are a few exceptions, but if you can do this with a sea bream, you can do it with most other types of round fish. Anyway, so that's one fillet removed, and now we're just going to flip the fish over and we can repeat the process on the other side. So round the head, under that fin, followed by cutting down the back, and then long sweeping cuts to remove the rest of the fillet. So all that's left to do now is to remove the skin, so we'll take one fillet and hold the tail end very firmly against the chopping board, and then you want to run your knife underneath the flesh and between the skin. To do this you want light pressure downwards, that's why this knife is flexible, and if done correctly you should have no fish left on the skin whatsoever. And the last thing to do is just trim up these rough edges to give the fish a better presentation. And then we'll repeat the whole process with the other fillet, and then we have our two fillets off of a round fish. So now let's move on to a flat fish. Here I have a plaice. So for this one we're going to make three initial cuts, one around the head, one along the spine and one down the tail end. So make your first cut by the tail where the dorsal fin ends. Next up we'll cut around the head, going underneath that pectoral fin once again. And then we'll make our third cut down the middle of the fish, just following the natural line that you can see. And now if you run your finger in the cut you just made down the spine, you should be able to feel a bump, and you're going to want to go one side of that bump, and you're going to run your knife down the bones, pressing down with light pressure to bend the knife slightly. And again, as with the round fish, keeping your knife as close to the bone as possible so you're not wasting any fish or leaving it on the bone. And you're going to be making them long sweeping cuts here. Avoid doing a sawing motion as this will tear the fish. And you're just going to keep going until you get to the edge of the fish, and you'll notice that it's only attached by skin. At this point you can just cut it off. And that's our first fillet removed. This is going to be a long fillet as they have two long and two short fillets. The short fillets are located on the side here with the gill. Now the process of removing the short fillet is very much the same, except instead of going around the head you're going to go around where the gills were, and then you're just going to make your long sweeping cuts the other side of the spine and keep going until you reach the outside of the fish and remove exactly the same as we did the first one. And on the short fillet you might find you need to remove the roe, so just start from the thin end and just pull it off towards the thicker end. So that's one side filleted. Now all you need to do is turn it over and do the same to the other side. So once you've taken all four fillets off, you want to find this seam that ends just where the fish flesh ends. You run your fingers down there, you'll see it separates quite easily, and you'll just trim off that excess skin. And you'll just do this to the other three fillets, and then you can leave it here and cook it with the skin on, or we can do the same as we did with the round fish and just remove all of the skin. So to do that, once again, get a firm hold on the thinnest end of your fillet of fish and begin cutting into the flesh, flattening out your knife as soon as you can and putting downward pressure on, and then using the sawing motion just work your way to the other end of the fish. And if you've done this correctly you should end up with absolutely no flesh left on that skin at all. And now just remove the skin from the other three fillets of fish and you're ready to cook. If you learned anything in this video and want to see more, make sure you subscribe and leave me a like, and we'll see you next week.